It's my pleasure today to introduce Judge Keli Aiken as to be our speaker today. She's married to Joey Aiken, and they have two sons, Joseph and Andrew. Joseph is married to Rissa and has a new daughter, Callaway. I am friends with Judge Aiken on Facebook, and I know how proud she is to be a first-time grandmother. Andrew and Joseph, her sons, are both students at UT in Tyler. Kelly started working at the Hunt County DA's office as a law student in the end of 2002. In 2016, she left the prosecutor's office as the first assistant district attorney to take office here in January of 17 as a district court judge for the 354th District Court. Judge Aiken, would you come and share with us, please?
Sure. Okay.
I didn't know if you put one on.
You'll probably be able to hear me regardless, but just in case, we wanted to have it. All right, so my name is Keli Aiken. I am the 354th District Court Judge here for Hunt County, Texas. Little fun fact for you, I am the first female district judge we've had in Hunt County. A little surprising there. Even more fun probably for you guys is that one of your fellow Rotarians is the reason I work here and where I am here today. Mr. Duncan Thomas hired me when I was still a law student after I went and harassed him 3 separate times to serve as an intern. He told me no twice. And the third time he said, well, I've got this this case I just been working on, and I need somebody who can do a lot of writing, so I'm going to let you work on it and we'll see how you do. And here I am, all these years later, serving as a district judge. So because Duncan took a chance on a crazy young law student, a career was made, and I'm very grateful to him for it. And I know my husband is too, and our kids. Yes, I am proud to be a grandma, just so you know. I have a little granddaughter. She is 3 months old. Her name is Callaway, our first grandchild, so very important to us. Our oldest son is getting his master's in business and marketing at UT Tyler, and our younger son's getting his bachelor's at UT Tyler in electrical engineering, and he is working out at L3 in the summers and on breaks. So we're hoping one of them moves back home, if we're lucky. A lot of people ask questions about what our job is and what a district judge does. I think all of you have a little bit of an idea if you've ever served on jury service or ever been on a grand jury as to what a district judge does. The most important question I think I get asked all the time is, why would you possibly want to do that job? Why would you want to do it? There's crazy hours. We're on call all the time, it seems like. Often we're in court working through lunch. Often we're there early in the morning. Often we're there late in the evening. And many times we're there on the weekends working on cases. The reason that we do the job is hard to grab and yet obvious to others sometimes to see. Maybe even more obvious to you guys than to me sometimes. But if you've ever had a case where you're at the end of it and you see a child's life who has been dramatically changed in some way, improved in some way, or a defendant who's gone through the criminal justice system and come out the other end and done very well and exceeded your expectations, or someone who's had a lifelong history of drug abuse, and at the other end of this, when they come out the other end, they're clean and sober. They have their first job. They're paying their bills. They're taking care of their family. You only need to see that one time in your life to be addicted to this job. Just one time. It's so sweet. You walk in and you see someone's life dramatically improve over the course of our involvement. And we may play a very small part in that, and we may play no part. We may just be witnesses to it. Sometimes I think God puts us in a place for a reason to just witness what happens so that we can benefit from the grace that He's extending to all of us. And that's why I do this job. It's not because you get a lot of money, because I promise you I could get more money working somewhere else. It's not because I have great hours, because I do not have banker's hours. And it's not because I'm well loved or well thought of, because I get death threats and harassment and picked on all the time. And it's not because people walk around and call you judge, because honestly, nothing in my life has changed since I became a judge. I wear the same pants. I have the same husband. I have the same kids. I just get cussed out a little bit more now in this job. So that's why I do it. It's because we see some crazy, beautiful experiences in the courtroom. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the things you could do that would be a way you could be involved in the system that could also give you an opportunity to experience that same level of complete satisfaction with the job. And you don't have to do it by being a judge. There's other ways you could do it. One way you could serve and be a part of the system is by being an informed voter. If you guys don't go out and vote, guess who votes? Guess, who do you think? The guys who have never read a book, or don't read the newspaper, or don't know any of the people involved, or don't care who your judges are, or who your prosecutors are, or who's handling your money for the county. So be an informed voter. I mean, that's number one, the most important, easiest thing you can do to be involved in the system is to care about what happens in your community. Even if you don't vote for me, that's fine. If you don't like me, don't vote for me. But please go out and vote and make a decision that you want to be informed about who you want representing you. Because it's very important that the people who speak for you are speaking on your behalf in the interests that you have. That we have the same values, that we have the same thoughts that you have, that we have the same family experiences, that we care about our community like you do. If not, we might as well all move to Austin. How many here wants to move to Austin? Nobody. We live in Hunt County for a reason, okay? Because we like living in a rural Hunt County. If we wanted to live in a big city, we'd move there. Sorry. But the rest of us choose to live in a rural Hunt County. There's a reason for that. And the only way we keep it this way, the only way we preserve the community we love and care about, is by being invested in it. So please, whoever you decide to vote for, whatever party you affiliate with, whoever it is you believe is important, make an informed decision when you go out and vote so that you're voting for someone you can stand up for, someone that you know will stand up for you when they're doing their job. Another way that you can be involved, serve on a jury. You guys, we are appalled. Judge Thomas can tell you this as well. Every time we have a jury come in, we summon 300 people in district court. I generally have 100 to 120 people show up. 300 people. That means 50% of the people in our community don't care about jury service. They just flat don't care. They just don't show up. I'm not talking they call and say, I'm really sick, I can't be there, can you reset me? Or I'm sorry, I'm out of town. No, they just don't come.
Don't they issue a warrant or something? Is there?
No.
Oh, I thought always.
And let me tell you why. Because I tried this as a new judge, because, you know, I'm the one who likes to try new things, and I'm not afraid to be the one that gets mud on them every now and then. So when I was a new judge, I had a couple of really important trials set, and the first 2 times I had half the jury panel show up. And I thought, what am I going to do? I've got all these other people here who are good citizens and are willing to show up. I've got to honor the fact that they are willing to show up by making the people who didn't show up appear. So I had them print me out a list. It had over 100 names on it. So then I thought, how am I going to get all these people here? Am I going to take every cop in Hunt County and borrow cops from somewhere else to go find these 100 people and bring them into court? How many days would that take? How many people would have to be involved? How many clerks would it require? It would take away all the people who were sitting in my courtroom, all of their protection on the street for a week or two to try to get those 100 people back in there. Because they have to hunt them down and find them. They have to hand them a summons. They have to bring them to before me in the courtroom. And I just have to sit there for a week, pretty much 24/7, to deal with these 100 people who didn't show up. Is that a good use of your taxpayer money? No. So they get out of it. They just don't show up. Yeah, we don't have, the way I have to handle it is I have to go get them and bring them before me before I can do anything else. And I don't have a way to do that without taking every cop you have on the street off the street to go chase people down. That's why we don't do it. Believe me, as judges, we would love to do that. Bring them all in there and make them all understand that they need to show up. But at the same time, we're not going to waste your taxpayer money to do it. And we're not going to spend every officer's time doing that for the next 2 or 3 weeks, hunting people down. So showing up for jury duty is very important. If you don't show up, if the people who care about what happens in Hunt County don't show up, guess who shows up? People who don't care, right? Who don't really want to be there. They just get stuck on the jury. They're not happy about it. They want to get out of there. They're not interested in your community. They're not interested as much in how things are going to happen. They're just worried they're going to get a warrant, so they show up. Do you want those people deciding your cases? Right? I mean, I would think that when you make a decision about who you want to be the judge, that part of what you think about as a voter is I want somebody whose judgment I trust when they make decisions. Right? I hope. Well, in a jury, if you guys don't show up, you're just trusting everyone else who shows up to make those decisions. And some of them are life and death. Some of them are who gets their children and who doesn't. Some of them are who goes bankrupt and who doesn't. Who goes to jail and who doesn't. These are crucial, important decisions in the lives of the people that are before us. And if y'all don't show up, whoever shows up and walks through the door, that's who makes the decision. If you've ever had a child or a family member or yourself been involved in any case in our system, family law, civil, tax, criminal, any of them, you would want a jury of people who are your peers, who care about our community, who care about you, and want to hear what's going on with you. Whether you're the victim, the defendant, the plaintiff, whatever. You want people to care. And if you have a jury full of people that don't care, it's going to make it a lot harder for you. So please show up for jury service. It is absolutely crucial that honest, hardworking individuals, people who care enough about our community to be in Rotary, show up for jury service. Yes, ma'am.
I want to be on the jury.
I know. I know.
I never get picked for anything.
Yes. My husband wants to be on a jury. Y'all know Joey Aiken's my husband at Brookshire's. He gets called in for jury service on a trial where I'm the prosecutor several years ago. And Scott Cornod kept telling him he was going to put him on the jury. And I'm like, go right ahead. I know how he's going to vote. It won't be fair, but okay. I mean, I can't do anything about it. And of course, Judge Leonard waited till the very end and then he laughed and looked at Scott and said, no, you're excused. So Joey can't serve either. So I know your pain. But please show up. Even if you think they won't pick you for whatever reason, please show up. Because if you don't show up, I'm left with the people who just walked through the door because they thought they were going to get arrested. And that's who makes our important decisions in our cases. Other ways you can be involved. You could work as a CASA member. We have CASA volunteers, court-appointed special advocates. Their only job is to represent children in court. And these are children who've been removed for some purpose from their family's home because they're in danger, whether it be emotional abuse, physical abuse, neglect, or sexual abuse. If you don't think that you're capable of serving as a CASA yourself and representing children in court because you don't want to deal with all that emotion and difficulty and having to look at the little kid going through such horrible circumstances, you could just volunteer for them and do something else. They have all kinds of other things they can have you do that don't require you going to court. But you have a couple of Rotarians who do go to court as CASAs right now. We've got David. He's a wonderful representation for CASA. Are you on there, Roseanne?
Roxanne, yeah.
Roxanne, yes. Roxanne is on there, yes. Anyone else in here a CASA volunteer?
I'm not a volunteer, but I'm on the board.
And on the board,
Last week,
Mr. Clark.
we ran out of volunteers because of the influx of new clients.
Yes, we have 200 children, approximately 200 children right now, represented by CASA volunteers. They do not have enough volunteers and they need them desperately.
We had about 15 new ones last week or two, and we ran out of volunteers.
What does that entail as a volunteer?
As a CASA volunteer, you have to go to a class and they train you on how to handle the cases, but then you are assigned children and you get to pick how many kids you want, what your level of availability is. Some CASAs have one child, some have 12. It just depends on your availability and your schedule. If you represent that child as the CASA, you get to come to court and speak directly to the judge and tell us what's going on with that child. You get to tell us what you've learned and seen by talking to the child. You get to relay to us what the child has said to you. Nobody else in the courtroom gets to do that but you. You are the voice for that child. If any of you guys have ever seen a case where a child has had to testify in a public courtroom, you would know how horrible it is. I just had one a few weeks ago. It's horrible for children to testify in a courtroom. They're scared to death. There's strangers that they're talking in front of. They're having to talk about really sensitive, difficult subjects that most adults would shy away from. And here they are getting on the stand, answering the questions, telling everybody what happened. Because they have to. They don't have a choice. But if they had a CASA in the CPS case, the CASA could speak for them. And that child doesn't have to come in the courtroom. And they don't have to get on the witness stand. And no one's going to ask them who touched you where. And no one's going to make them tell how they cried when it happened. And no one's going to make them get up there and tell how they're so afraid to go home because they're afraid they won't be able to sleep in their room at night because their big brother might come in there and molest them. Those kids don't have to do that because their CASA does it for them. It's a very important job. Probably one of the most important jobs I deal with for lay persons when they come into the courtroom. So if you have a heart for speaking for children and working with them, please consider CASA. That's a way you can be involved. The Child Advocacy Center is another method that we have for individuals to volunteer and be involved in working with children. The Child Advocacy Center provides support, guidance, counseling, and interviews for children. There are sexual abuse victims, physical assault victims, emotional abuse victims. You may not be the person who's qualified to do the interviews, and that's fine. But you could be the person who's qualified to be there as a support. You might even be the person who gets to come sit in court in support of the child when they testify, so that they have a friendly face and someone that they know and have a relationship with sitting there that they can talk to when they're having to address this jury full of strangers. You could be that person, which is a very important person in their life. You could be the person who just volunteers and helps out with events for the kids where they get to go and be children, even though they're dealing with these crazy criminal cases. And you might just be the guy who comes and fills balloons full of air and hands them off to each kid as they go by. But you're still making a difference in that kid's life, every balloon you make. So there are plenty of ways you can be involved in helping our children. Other ways that you can help out in the system, you could be on a grand jury. Grand juries are selected, they serve for a 6-month time frame, and they hear every felony case for 6 months. And they decide if they go forward. Grand juries have an incredible amount of power. Every 6 months, Judge Bench and I select a grand jury. They're brought in by a random process, but once you get in the room in front of us, we can pick who is selected to serve on our grand jury. And we get a representation across the community, 8 different ages, different experiences, different education levels, to come and serve on our grand jury. And they make a decision, does this case go forward or does this case not go forward? It is a crucial determination. Yes, there's enough evidence to send this one to trial, and no, there isn't.
How many people are on there?
There are, I believe, 14 people impaneled. You have to have 9 to vote. So generally 12 are called each time. There are a couple of alternates that are available to fill in. Yes, sir?
Served on a grand jury for 6 months. At the end of the second month, I asked Duncan Thomas, I said, how did I end up on this anyway? He says, I asked the last grand jury if they'd recommend anybody they thought would make a good candidate. My wife recommended me.
Yes. We used to be able to do that. We can't anymore. It's now done by the same process as regular jury selection.
Is it driver's license?
Driver's license and voter registration is how they're all in a hopper and they pull them out. Yes, ma'am. Miss Lane.
I've really learned a lot. I've been grand jury twice, and that's something to understand the process and to be able to learn how we're doing the things judicially. It's wonderful, and if anybody's had an opportunity, please serve on a grand jury.
Yes, it's a wonderful experience. You have several individuals in here who've served on grand juries, but I'm not going to call them out for you unless they want to speak, because grand jury identity is confidential. And so unless they disclose it, I don't disclose it to people. But I will tell you, serving on the grand jury, after they're done, at the end of their 6 months, I have never had a grand juror say, I can't believe I did this, I'm never doing it again. They always say, this wasn't too bad, or hey, can I do it again? When's the next one? I'd be happy to serve again. So please, if you get the opportunity, consider that. It will be inconvenient because you have to come up once a month for 6 months on the grand jury, and you spend a day there. So once a month for 6 months. So it's inconvenient for work, but it's worth it. They do buy your lunch. If they keep you there all day, they buy your lunch. If they only keep you there half a day, they don't. Sometimes they leave early. So grand jury is another way that you can be involved. Oh, foster families. Guys, we have a huge need for foster families. I don't know if you've heard, but most of our Hunt County children are placed outside of Hunt County because we do not have enough foster families here in Hunt County. And you may or may not be a person individually who's able to take children into your home. Believe me, my husband and I have talked about this forever. He's like, no, we're not bringing home any more kids. I'd have 20 if he'd let me. So instead I get to do this job. So you might be that person who can't have more kids in your home, and that's okay. You could still help foster families by being affiliated with one of our foster placement agencies affiliated with CPS, and they do events for all the foster children. So for example, Hunt County Kids has a big fairy tale ball for the kids. You could volunteer at that. You could come out and help for their dinners that they throw for the children, or their respite night when they have a date night where all the foster parents can go on the dates and leave their children and have their kids do activities, have little fairs and things like that. You could do that if you can't bring them into your home. There's never going to be a time, I don't think, in most of our lives where we're not available or not willing to give of our time to benefit a needy child. No matter what age you are, no matter how young or old you are, no matter what your lifestyle is like, no matter whether you got one kid at home or none, I think all of us can find time to spend an hour benefiting needy children that truly just need a smile, a handshake, someone to draw a picture with them, someone to listen to their story, someone to tell them what a great kid they are, or how much they pray for them or care about them. And that would make a world of difference to these children. So if you could do that, that's a way you could help. If you're able to foster, please consider and talk to your spouse about being a foster parent, because we desperately need them in Hunt County. We do not have enough placements, and our children are getting placed as far away as Houston and down by the border in some places, because we just don't have enough homes to put them in. And I've got a lot of kids that need care, and we've got to find places to put them, and they have to be good homes. And I'm pretty sure that most of the people in this room would be able to offer that if they wanted to. So think about it. WIN, I almost forgot. WIN, Women in Need. Women in Need is a domestic violence service that we have in our community that provides a shelter, counseling, and support for family violence victims. If you don't know, family violence is a huge problem in Hunt County. It's probably a huge problem everywhere, but it definitely is here, okay? You only have to look as far as this room to see 2 judges who deal with family violence every single day. I just got done with court this morning dealing with family violence cases. Judge Thomas will probably have some this afternoon or tomorrow. Every day, that's what we deal with them. Family violence is a huge problem. It invades the one place that children and adults should be safe, which is their home. You don't realize how dangerous it is to have no safe place to go if you've never been in that position. But these kids don't have a place they can go and be safe. You and I can go home every day, and when I walk through my door, I know everything's good. I know my wonderful husband will be there, my children might be there, my pets are there. I know no one's going to harass me. I know that no one's going to hit me. I know that I'm going to have food to eat and a roof over my head and a warm, safe place to sleep. And these kids don't. And some of these men and women don't. They desperately need role models to give them examples of what a good parent looks like, because some of them don't have that. They never learned it from their parents, and they don't know how to provide it to their children. They desperately the kids need to know that there are other people out there who are not like their parents, who don't hit and scream and cuss and yell and throw things all the time. A lot of these kids don't know that. They think that's what every adult does, because that's their life experience. I actually had a kid in foster care when we started doing providing services. We were trying to get outside help for the foster care families through Care Portal, who asked for a pillow because she'd never had her own pillow. She shared a pillow with her brother. Oh my gosh. I mean, think about that. The things that we get every day that we take for granted, they don't have. You know, I often have children ask for blankets, for new shoes. They've never had a new pair of shoes. And so there are small things you could do that would absolutely impact a child that might involve you spending a little money or giving a little time, but would definitely help improve their circumstances. And CPS has a program. They used to call it Care Portal. I'm not sure what it's called now. They've changed the name of it, but it's run by Cher Bench and Rosie Shields, and it's run through the churches. And what happens is when there's a need for a foster child, the need gets placed. They give a list of the needs, email them to the churches, and the churches are able to fill those needs. So, for example, a family who might otherwise not get their child back because they don't have a bed for them to sleep in, but they've done everything else for CPS. They've done all their services. They're not using drugs. They love their children. They want them back, but they don't have a bed for their kid to sleep in. Can put that need out through the Care Portal. A church can fill it, and guess where that kid gets to go home that night? To mom and daddy. To a bed. Because CPS can't return a child without a bed. Simple as that, guys. It's really that simple. Also, if you guys don't know about RAFA is a great organization we have here in town. They have wonderful volunteer services. They provide parenting classes for most of our CPS families. And a lot of their people that work there are volunteers. And they're not specially trained in terms of like some great master's degree or doctorate or anything like that. They're you and you and you and me and my brother and my neighbor who just have raised our kids, and we knew what worked with ours and what didn't. And we come alongside these parents and just say, hey, what's going on? Can you tell me? Tell me what your experience is, and let me tell you what my experience is, and maybe somewhere we can find a common ground. And they're like amazed. These parents are amazed to find out that there are options for them on how they can parent their children, because they've never been taught. They don't know that when your child tells you she's being sexually abused, you have to call the police. Because you know what? When they were sexually abused, when they were kids, nobody called the police. They just said, don't tell anyone, and they let it keep happening. They don't know they're supposed to do that. Okay? They don't know that if you use methamphetamine and you use it so much that you pass out and don't take care of your 1-year-old, that CPS is going to come in and take your kid. Because nobody's ever told them that. Because their parents and their friends and their neighbors and their siblings probably have used meth all their lives. And to them, it's normal to find somebody laying out on the floor passed out. Because they don't know any different. If you come alongside them in a parenting class, you will give them a different perspective. Even if all you do is talk to them and encourage them, you can give them a whole different perspective on what's available in their life. And it doesn't involve you giving them money, and it doesn't involve you taking them home and raising them. It just involves you being willing to be a support system to them. And they'll control that. They're not going to follow you to your house. They're not going to look you up on the weekends. It'll be in a controlled setting where you can say, I'm done, and leave anytime you want. But you might be surprised at how much you want to stay, just to ride it out and see that person's life change. I have so many young parents in Hunt County that just need guidance. That's all they need. They need a little help and guidance to stay on the right track. We have so many young people in Hunt County that are committing offenses and getting caught into trouble, that what we're doing now is we have a pretrial diversion program that identifies kids, young kids, or first-time offenders that have never been in trouble before, that have a real opportunity to come into the felony criminal system where they're looking at up to 10 years in prison. And they come in, and we give them a list of services and help to get to those services. And once they complete them, and they do successfully, their case is over. And they're not felons. And they can still go to school or law school or become a cop or get a job. Or we could not have that program, and those kids can get funneled through the system without support. And guess what happens? They'll probably end up in prison. And then when they come out of prison, we're going to be dealing with them. And no one's going to want to hire them, and no one's going to want to give them a job, and nobody's going to want them to marry their child. So we can attack it on the front end and try to help them, or we can deal with it on the back end. And there's some people always that you can't reach on the front end. There's some level that you just never reach. But I haven't yet found a single person I'm not willing to try it with. It doesn't matter to me if they're charged with a death penalty case or not. There's not a single person that's ever come in front of me that hasn't had something about them that was redeemable, something about them that we should care about, something about them that we should hope gets better. Whether it means they're locked up the rest of their life in prison with it, or they get to get out and go home, depends on the circumstances. But I've never seen one yet. And I've also never seen one come in yet that didn't have a family who cared about them, or friends, or children, or a loved one who was invested in what happened to them. So I don't see any worthless people. Every person I see has a value. Every person who comes before me, whether it's a victim, or a litigant, or a parent's going through a divorce, or children, or a person charged with the most heinous crime, they all have a value. And instead of turning our backs on them because it's more convenient for us and walking away from it, I'm going to challenge each one of you to find a way in our community where you can make yourself a little uncomfortable and give a little more of yourself in hopes that we might reach these people and give them an opportunity to have a better life. So, why do I do my job? Because I get to see those changes. I have a guy who was a 25 to lifer who I sent to Senecor for 2 years, who just graduated from the program. And this guy had been in and out of prison at least 6 times, and he really had no hope in court. And he stood up and asked me for drug rehab. And I almost said no. In fact, I did say no first. But there was something about him, the way he asked for it, that just got to me. And so I let him have a chance at drug rehab. He has graduated from the program. He's been hired by the facility. He has a full-time job, an apartment, visitation with his child who hasn't seen in forever. For the first time in his life, he is drug-free. And I get to go to his graduation in June. I'm going to go up there and I'm going to speak at his graduation. And I'm probably going to cry when I do it. If you think that every person you see doesn't have redeeming value, you are missing out on the thing about each one of us that God has put there that makes us like Him. Don't give up on that. Don't look away from it because it's hard to look at. Don't ignore it because it comes in a difficult package. Don't turn your back on it because it's inconvenient for you. Instead, find a way that you can suffer just a little to impact that person's life. Because when this guy walks across that stage, I'll probably be yelling louder than his mama. Thrilled to death to see what happened. Because I will know that his life has changed for the better. Just like the father whose son was killed in a horrible capital murder case. And I had to go for the execution. It's part of my job. And I sat there with that dad who, while the young man who killed his son was laying on the table being executed, prayed with me that that young man would seek salvation before he died. He prayed for that man. The guy never asked for forgiveness. He never apologized. But it never changed the fact that the father of the murder victim put his entire heart and soul into wanting that young man to have salvation before he died. And I got to see it because of this great job. I hope you have experiences like that in your life. The ones that break your heart and make it worth getting up every day. The ones that you suffer through and the ones that are so hard, but sometimes so incredible that you just stand there and cry because you don't know what else to do. I pray you have those experiences. If you don't, find a way to have them. I can give you a list. And you will be rewarded. It won't be in money. It won't be in stars. No one's going to pat you on the back. In fact, it might be pretty difficult. But you will get up and look at yourself in the mirror and know that you have done everything in your power to invest in people we love. There's no greater gift that we can give. So I hope all of you will join me in that endeavor. Thank you.
This video has been brought to you by GEUS 34. GEUS is your community-owned provider for electric, internet, cable TV, and true local programming.